Hey there, it's Kimberly with Knit for Brains, and today I am finally finishing up my granny cardigan whip, which hopefully will get at least one PhD Hoth and make it a faux for good. My sew may think that I have an OCD problem, but my crochet is strong. Now, okay, that being said, I might have to admit that I may have a Pable or even a Sable problem, but I would disagree and say that I just love to sip, right? And I'm gearing up my talcs for upcoming vacation. So today, before I start another yap, I thought we could talk about slang. Crochet slang, that is. Are you lost yet? Well, stay tuned to this episode to find out what the heck I'm talking about. Hey there, it's Kimberly here with Knit for Brains. Okay, so today on this podcast episode, I wanted to talk about crochet slang. These are not crochet terms that are included in instructions with patterns, but these are actual slang terms that us in the know like to use. So I thought, these are terms that you probably should know if you don't already. But before I get into that, I wanted to show you my whip. Now that stands for work in progress, if you weren't aware. This is my crochet cardigan. It's my granny square cardigan. I think I'm changing the name of it to Hillary because we just came out on the other side and survived Hurricane Hillary. Actually, it wasn't that bad. We had a lot of rain, a lot of wind where we are, but we didn't lose anything. No trees, really, no small animals or children. Everyone's safe and sound. But we had a lot of rain. Anyways, so I'm doing my granny square cardigan. Let me show you what it looks like. Okay, so this is it. And I've attached it to my tailor's dummy, as my husband calls it. And I'm just trying to figure out where these sleeves are supposed to go and then what I need to add to it extra. I really like the way it's coming out. It's a long process, let me tell you. And so I've added the border, and then now I'm going to do a peacoat stitch very similar to what I did down over here. And then when that's all done, I'm going to go ahead and block it and press it, and it should be done pretty soon. But I really am liking all of the colors. So this is what it's looking like here on the back side. I think I'm going to have to add another triangle here and here just to finish out the back side. But it's looking really nice. I'm really happy with it. It's just taking a lot more time than I anticipated, and I just have to figure out where to attach these sleeves to. So my husband, the Brit, is putting together the stand for my tailor dummy, as he calls it, so I can figure out where everything goes and then pin the sleeves in place, and then I'm going to be pretty much done. So there you go. It's definitely been a work in progress, a labor of love. I really hope that I'm going to like it. As much as I was hoping I would, just because it's really been a lot of work. But anyways, that being said, this is what I'm working on today. So that is my whip. WIP stands for work in progress or progress. Living with the Brit too long, I picked up some of his little terms. So let's talk about some of the other terms in crochet, those slang terms that you should probably be aware of. Number one, I used this earlier, is Hoth or Thoth, which stands for hot off the hooks or fresh off the hook. So I'm hoping that this guy is going to be my Hoth or my Thoth here shortly. C2C stands for corner to corner crochet. Okay, so that could be crochet blankets or granny squares or anything that's worked on the diagonal, right? It's often used as a graph to create an image. So sometimes they have like really cool images and pictures and butterflies and flowers. And I've even seen rock stars. And there's even a website that specifically, she makes nothing but C2C patterns. And they're pretty amazing. I personally have not tried one myself. A cal, C-A-L, most of us have probably heard about that. That's called a crochet along. There is also one for our sisters in arms in knitting, and that's called a cal, K-A-L. So you've got a C-A-L cal or a K-A-L cal, meaning a crochet along or a knit along depending on what you're doing. It's sort of, like a crafting online sort of a thing. Of course, you could also do it in person if you really wanted to. So your LYS, I've been to these before, and I've talked about this. This is your local yarn store, your LYS. We all should be visiting and know about those. Your WIP, as I mentioned before, is your work in progress. It's either something that you've been, working your heart out on, case in point, my cardigan, or something that's just been sitting in your basket for months that you need to kind of, give a little bit of CPR to and revive. Your faux, F-O, is your finished object, right? That's exciting. So something can be a hoth and a faux, hot off the hooks and a finished project. UFOs, hopefully you don't have a lot of those. I have a few, but not as many as I used to have. And a UFO stands for an unfinished object. It's kind of an unfinished project, but it sounds a little bit better than that. All right, what else do we have? A PhD. We all have PhDs. We all have PhDs, and that stands for project half done. But, you know, I think it makes us sound smart. So let's all say that we have PhDs. A toad. Now, this is something that I haven't done very often, maybe once or twice in my crocheting experience, my crochet life, but that is a trashed object, which is abandoned in disgust, meaning can't do anything else with it. You lost the pattern. You don't even know what you're making in the first place, and it ends up in the trash. Hopefully we don't have some of those. Sometimes you just got to tote it. You know, you just got to say it, see it. Now, this next one is one that I probably have a problem with. I'm going to be honest with you, and that is my sable, and that is your stash accumulated beyond life expectancy, which means I might have more yarn than I can use in my entire lifetime. I'd like to think that I don't. I'd like to think that I could finish it all, but I do have a big stash, and so a sable is a stash accumulated beyond your life expectancy, right? So I don't know. Do you have one? OCD. Right? OCD stands for obsessive crocheting disorder. I'm okay with that disorder. I am okay being told that I'm OCD. Pigs are projects in grocery sacks or these little cloth bags back over here. I don't put them in grocery sacks too often. I do like to have a bag, but I do have a lot of these bags, and if you look closely inside, there's actually projects down inside those bags. They're not toads, but I do have a lot of whips in my pigs. For sure. NCR is anything that is not crochet related. Sometimes we talk about stuff that's not crochet related, but, you know, in terms of, you know, like blogs or posts on Facebook, things like that, occasionally we'll have an NCR, but most of the time it's crochet related. ISO is in search of, so maybe you're in search of a specific yarn or a hook or something that's a little bit hard to find. That's your ISO. So sometimes we put those out into the group so we can share it and see if anybody has access to an ISO or can tell us how to get this ISO. Crojo, well, we all know what that is, right? That's our crochet mojo. I'm assuming that if you're a knitter, you would call it your kojo, K-O-G-O, but that's your mojo. You know, like there's sometimes you're like, I just don't want to do anything else, especially after I finish a big project like this guy over here, this cardigan. I might have a little bit of kojo, but it only lasts, or crojo, but it only lasts maybe a day or so, maybe. What I might do is to do some smaller projects just to kind of, you know, like, because the waiting and the waiting and the waiting is what is just annoying. All right, so your pebble, now I probably could be found guilty of this as well. This is your patterns accumulated beyond life expectancy. I do have a lot of patterns. I have a lot of books. I have a lot of Etsy patterns. I have a lot of Ravelry patterns. So that I would probably say I might be past life expectancy. I hope to live to be 100, at which point I'll probably be okay, but who knows? A yap, which I mentioned before, is yet another project. So as soon as I finish this cardigan, my whip, and it's not a PhD, it's right now a PhD. When this whip becomes a faux, then I'm going to go right into a yap, which is yet another project, and another, and probably another, and another after that. I'm pretty certain. So crochet DD, I hadn't heard this one before, is crochet ADD. So that's the inability to focus on your whips, your PhDs, and your UFOs, just because there's so many other patterns out there. Now this I can identify with. So your talc is something called your take-along project, right? So every time I go on vacation, or every time I go on a road trip, or anywhere that I think I'm going to be somewhere longer than about an hour, I usually have a talc with me. And one of my pigs, right? My projects in a grocery bag. All right, let's see what else we have. Your DH or your sew. So that is your dear husband or your significant other. And he definitely helps me. So that's someone that's going to put on the sweater for you to see if it fits okay, to help you make your pretty much anything that he can do to help. So he'll either wear the sweaters for me, he'll help me to put it on and pin it on so I know where the sleeves are supposed to go. He's helping to put together my tailor's dummy, as he calls it. Anything that he can do, that he can be like a yarn tester or help me with my projects. That's my guy. Now, he might be doing it just because he wants to see me finish projects. I'm not sure, but he's a very good DH or a sew. Your FS is anything that's for sale. So if you sell anything like on an Etsy or an online website, Shopify, or in a craft show, well, that would be your Fs. So that would be your FOS FS, your finished objects for sale. TIA, we know that one. That's like thanks in advance. So if you're looking for an ISO and you post it on a page, you might say, hey, does anybody have this ISO TIA, which means thanks in advance. And your DD or your DS is your dear daughter or dear son. Same thing as the DH, which is the dear husband, or the SO, which is a significant other, but that's anyone that's going to help you out. It could be your DF too, your dear friend, or your BFF, right? That's helping you out with projects. Your mill, your fill, your bill, and your sills. Those would be your mother-in-law, your father-in-law, your brother-in-law, your sister-in-law, anybody that you're making projects for or that's helping you with the sizing and things like that. So that's not really a crochet term per se. I mean, we all kind of know what those are. And then here is something else that I think we all do, and I mentioned this earlier, is either to sip or kip, which means it's a CIP or a KIP, which means I crochet in public or I knit in public. And if you didn't know already, we do have a National Crochet in Public Day, and that happens to be June 12th. I think it's pretty much the same date every year. But when we had June Crochet Along Day, or in public, a couple months back, I was in Seattle, and I actually had I took a picture of a girl who was there doing it in her little, her toll booth station. She was a ferry operator, you paid ferries to her on the Seattle ferry, so that was kind of cool. All right, so those are my crochet slang terms that you might find on blogs or social media. Some of these you might know about and some of them you don't. So if you have any of these terms that you've used or that you hadn't heard about, or maybe some that I didn't mention that you do know about, go ahead and pop them down in the comments. I'd love to see more of those. This was kind of fun for me to do a little bit of research. I hope you enjoyed it. So now if you see them pop up, you'll be in the know. Oh, and of course, the biggest one, how could we forget, is frog, right? We all know about frogging. My husband couldn't really understand why it was called frogging because there's no acronym for it. And I said, well, that's because when you're pulling something out, you rip it, rip it, rip it, rip it. I know, bad jokes. This is Kimberly with Knit for Brains. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for subscribing and telling your friends about us. Today's little podcast was just about crochet slangs, things that we use, things that you might have seen, and what they actually mean, our little secret language. So thanks so much for watching. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button so you know when I post all my little notifications, all my little videos that are coming out. And as always, I'll see you soon.